Today, we are honored to welcome the founder of Prolon, El Nutra, and a very astute researcher in terms of longevity and fasting research, Dr. Joseph Antoun. How you doing, man?
Hey Anthony, how are you? Thanks for hosting me.
I'm doing
Hopefully we're
good.
going to change somebody's life today.
Absolutely. I'm really excited about this. Uh, your team reached out to me and I looked at all your stuff. I was really kind of intrigued and kind of inspired in a way because this is a really important topic in terms of health span and lifespan, right? And like a lot of people were kind of dying longer in a sense, but we're not really living longer. Like we're not full of health, and that's why I want to have you on. You do really important work. So I'm really curious myself, man. Like, how did you get into this space? Like, what's your story? Like, what is the spark that got you into the space of wanting to help people the way that you do?
Yeah, well, I always wanted to be a physician, and I thought being a doctor would help me cure patients, right? So I did that. I have an MD, PhD, and a couple of masters in health, and was lucky enough to do Harvard's and Hopkins and the top institutions. But at the end of the day, I figured out that I'm being taught how to meet people after they're sick. We see people after they're sick. Number two, we give them pills for most health conditions. Today the problem is not it's not a lung infection or acute disease. The problem is chronic diseases. The four big killers that we they're 90% of us will die from: Alzheimer's, cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease. Those they don't have a solution today. We just give you pills for the rest of your life, and we're not curing you out of any one of those. This is why the health system now is spending in the U.S. over $3 trillion, and our life expectancy just shrank last year by half a year. So we're
Really?
spending more. We're living sick. I mean, we used to say sicker longer. Now it's sicker shorter, right? It's unbelievable, and this is what prompted me to leave the practice of medicine. I was like, I'm practicing pill-driven chronic sick care. I'm not practicing healthcare. And and I went on a journey of health policy and public health, trying to advocate for more preventative health systems. And I advised a lot of ministries of health around the world how to do that. But something changed my life. I learned one concept which I was never taught in medicine or in life, which is aging is really how old are we from the inside is the true unit of measurement of health. Because think about it, you're not dying today from acute disease. We die, again, 90% of us will die. Most probably you and I, and 90% of whomever is listening today is going to die out of cancer, cardiovascular, Alzheimer's, or diabetes. This is what's killing most of us. And if you think about it, we in medicine, they taught us that each one of those is a separate disease. We have a separate strategy for each, separate pills, separate cardiologists here and endocrinologists there, etc. But think about it, they all come at later stage in life. They're age-related chronic diseases. You're not going to have a heart attack at age 22. You're not going to have Alzheimer's at age 32. You're not going to have most cancers at age 30. And definitely you're not getting diabetes, unless it's type 1, but the diabetes type 2, even if you
Yeah.
overeat at age 27. So they're age-related chronic disease. The mother of those diseases is aging. Of course, there's genetic predisposition, and of course, you can accelerate aging by unhealthy lifestyle. So there are some other factors, but the true factor, even if you have the ApoE gene genetically, you're not having Alzheimer's at age 30 or 40 or 50, right?
Yeah.
So aging, the bioage, how old are we from the inside, is really what the healthcare system should be about. That changed my life. I'm like, wow, how can I go and find ways to slow down the biological aging of the cells, right? So what we want, you, Anthony, so whenever you're 60, what we want is chronologically, when you're 60, we want you to be 50 from the inside. Guess what? You'll
Right.
be 10 years away from cancer onset. You'll be 10 years further away from the preset of Alzheimer's, et cetera, et cetera. So I started traveling around the world, meeting every aging labs, right? So Singapore and the National University of Singapore, they have big aging labs. China, Europe, US, and everywhere in the US, from the St. Clair's in Boston to to the Buck Institute in San Francisco, to finally I landed on the Longevity Institute at University of Southern California, which is under the leadership of Professor Walter Longo.
Oh yeah, I've heard of him for sure.
Walter Longo is the godfather of longevity today, and fasting as well. And we're gonna get to fasting after this. If you go on ChatGPT and you ask ChatGPT who's the longevity nutrition expert of the world, it's just Walter Longo. In everyone I talk to, that some of them work on NMN, some of them work on NAD, some of them work on all these pills for aging, but everyone agreed that today the only way we can keep the cells biologically younger was the fasting and the fasting mimicking diet. I was like, what's the linkage between fasting and staying younger from the inside?
Right.
And it turns out, and this was around now or right before the Nobel Prize in Medicine, which was awarded to fasting and rejuvenation of the cells in 2016. The Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2016 was on autophagy, or cellular rejuvenation. And basically, but we had uncovered this way before, basically is when you fast a little bit longer than the few hours that typically people do. People, skip breakfast. Typically, the most way of intermittent fasting is 16 hours. That helps you with the weight balance, but you got to go above 2 or 3 days of fasting. The body gets into a special crisis mode because you're depleting your storage. You have reserves, fat and glycogen. Whenever you fast, and the body say, okay, I'll break down the fat. I'll use the fat as a source of calories. Like if you have a company and you don't have revenues, you say, okay, I have money in the bank account, and I'll lean on that. These are my reserves. So the body does that up to 2 days, and then after day two, there's a big crisis that happens, and then the body's telling the cells, "Hey, you gotta fix yourself. You gotta use the debris, the organelles. You gotta, you know, turn different genes on to protect yourself and to rejuvenate and be at your best, because we gotta survive." So the fasting stress-induced cellular rejuvenation on day three is today the most proven and effective way to reverse the age of the body, because number one, every cell in the body lives on calories. So you have 37 trillion cells. There's nothing that can impact 37 trillion cells that we know today in medicine. Number two, you're changing the essence of the function of the cell to get it a little bit younger. And this is how uh, throughout hundreds of thousands of years species learn to defend themselves when there's no food. We tried it in fleas, we tried it in mice, we tried it in human. They all react the same. It's a genetic, because food was scarce, if you think about it, on the planet for hundreds of thousands of
Yeah.
years before we improved the food supply. So it was normal for any species on the planet to, eat when there's food, and you get a winter and it's snowing and there's no food, right? So we knew how to store and fat, and then when how to deplete and how to fast. Unfortunately, we lost that rejuvenation due to fasting, because we're living in food abundance today. And this is why we see cancer on the rise, Alzheimer's on the rise, cardiovascular on the rise, autoimmune on the rise. Every chronic disease is on the rise. People don't realize it is because we actually are eating all the time and stressing all the time and not sleeping well all the time, etc., etc. But mainly it's food. And the lack of fasting, which used to correct, it puts the body into an audit mode, and every cell is correcting. So if you have a precancerous cell, if you have a pre-Alzheimer's cell, and you lose a lot of weight, so if you're developing insulin resistance and going towards diabetes, you also reverse that. And that was now I have two big aha moments in my life. Aging, the bio-age of the body is essential to longevity, and fasting, but the longer fast, you got to go 3 to 5 days, is a big stress to rejuvenate the cells. Nobody wants to fast for 5 days unless you're one of the very, very few who are really fanatic about it. And this is where Professor Walter Longo at the University of Southern California, the Longevity Institute at USC, they received $20 million from the NIH, the National Institute of Health, to develop a fasting mimicking diet. Can you figure out how to nourish the body over 5 days, but without the cells recognizing the food? So you're giving the cells the benefit of rejuvenation while the person is consuming food, and therefore making fasting compliant, easy, less headaches, less risk, and basically democratizing fasting so that anywhere around the world, any person can get the 5-day fasting nutrition and get the benefits of rejuvenation and therefore longevity of fasting.
Awesome. That's an excellent story, man. Like, it sounds like you were in the medical field for a while, but then you really kind of branched out into like asking different questions, like more empowering questions, like why are people aging like this? Why are people like, not getting as healthy? And fasting seemed to be the tool that you came across. And yeah, I mean, I've been fasting for years. I actually like a 5-day juice fast or bone broth fast twice a year, and that's really difficult. But man, I definitely noticed the benefits afterwards. And yeah, I'm a huge fan myself, man.
Yeah, when you juice fast or bone broth fast, you're not really fasting. Let me just, because these are marketing pushes, right? If you look at bone broth and rejuvenation of the cells, there's no article showing that. If you do juice fasting, you're definitely not. You're getting into a level of ketosis and you're getting into a level of what we call shallow fast, because the body detects the carbs in the juices and detects in the bone broth the proteins as well. So it's a marketing push on us. And I know there's a lot of influencers and a lot of books, but it took us, just FYI, it took us 13 years and $36 million to develop this formulation of fasting mimicking diet. Today it's called Prolon. A lot of people have heard about Prolon. The fasting mimicking diet is the commercial name is Prolon. And the problem is that if the cell detects any one of the macronutrients, it says, okay, I'm in a very low calorie diet. And therefore, there are a lot of benefits. So you do the bone broth, you do juice. You say, hey, I feel great. Yeah, you lose some weight. By the way, you're going to lose a lot of muscle as well with those because there's no rejuvenation happening in the muscle. With Prolon, you only lose fat and you maintain lean body mass. And we have 3 clinical trials, randomized, IRB approved randomized clinical trials showing that you don't lose muscle performance and fasting. Because again, it's very important to differentiate a true fast, which acts as a stress, versus a low-calorie diet, which acts as a weight loss. So with Prolon, the fasting mimicking diet, it's a stress imposed on the cells because cells do not recognize the food and they're thinking they're fasting. When you're stressed, one of the stress hormones is growth hormone. So growth hormone goes very high. And now you're nourishing the muscle with the fasting mimicking diet, and the muscle cells are doing autophagy, the rejuvenation that we talked about. So you have a muscle rejuvenation. You're feeding the muscle the plant-based proteins that exist in Prolon, and you're getting the growth hormone to tell the muscle to grow. So you maintain and you rejuvenate the muscle. And a lot of big athletes do Prolon for that purpose. When you do bone broth, when you do juice fasting, you're just depleting the system. The cells recognize a little bit the macros, so they're not rejuvenating, they're just in depletion. So yes, you lose weight, you feel a little bit better. You touch on a shallow fast as well, which the ketones, the brain love a little bit the ketones. So you feel a little bit better, but actually you lost a little bit of muscle and you did not rejuvenate your cells.
That
And
makes sense.
that's very important to discern.
Definitely. So you mentioned autophagy a few times. You want to mention when that is and the benefits of that?
Yeah, and there's a big myth about autophagy, right? Because most people think that if they skip breakfast and intermittent fasting, they're doing autophagy, right? Most intermittent fasters, they try to go 16 or 18 or 20 hours to get into autophagy, and that's wrong. It doesn't happen. It was a myth for 2 reasons. Number one, the mice in preclinical trials, they show that within a day, the mice go into autophagy. But the mice metabolism is a rapid metabolism. So whatever happens in a day in mice, it takes a couple of days in humans, a little bit less
Right.
than 2 days. So that's a big mistake because we couldn't measure autophagy in humans, but now we can. There are 8 labs across the nation that do that. And so we measured Prolon and autophagy at University of San Antonio in Texas. They have one center, and Cedars-Sinai in LA, and they showed that autophagy happens after day 3. So now in human, we have proof of what we always thought. This is why we have Prolon's 5 days. Otherwise, we could have launched a 2-day fasting mimicking diet or 1-day fasting mimicking diet. It would have been much easier, right? We would have made billions out of it rather than inspiring people to do a 5-day fasting mimicking
Right.
nutrition, because we know that autophagy and cellular rejuvenation and regeneration only happens after day 3. You got to go into crisis. You got to deplete, and it takes a couple of days for the body to say, okay, I'm burning fat fast. I'm using my glycogen. We are going into crisis. Let me tell the cells to rejuvenate, and that takes 2 to 3 days. A lot of people thought if you skip breakfast, the body just ate yesterday. There's plenty of fat. There's plenty of food being digested. There's no crisis. It's like I always give the comparison of if you have a company and you need $1 million per month for the company to survive. It's like the body needing whatever 1,400, 1,800 calories, and then suddenly you don't have revenues, like the body fasting, right? What are you going to do as a CEO of that company? You're going to go to the bank first. You say, hey, I have some checking money in the checking or money in the saving account, and I can lean on my credit card. The body does the same thing. Glycogen is the checking account. Quickly, you can go to glycogen. This is the first few hours. Then you go to fat. You break down fat. This is the overnight to the next day. You start being in ketosis. And then the credit card or the loan is the liver that does neoglucogenesis and dumps even more calories into the blood. And that's end of day 2. So you have the first 2 days some defense line to compensate for the deficit out of your reserve. You don't go into autophagy. There's no super stress on the cells the first few hours. If you skip breakfast, I mean, come on, you don't feel even any stress based on that. So that's the biggest myth that I'm trying to re-educate everyone, because there's a huge marketing push that if you do intermittent fasting, you skip breakfast, or you do 18 hours, you're getting cellular rejuvenation. It does not happen. It happens when you do the prolonged 5-day fasting mimicking diet. This is not marketing for Prolon. The entire existence of Prolon was created by the water fasting labs of Walter Longo. So we were a water fasting company, and then we had to create Prolon, and the US government gave $20 million to support that in order to be able to help people to fast longer and benefit from the cellular benefits of fasting.
Interesting, man. Yeah, it's definitely some things to think about. I mean, sounds like you got a lot of research in Prolon. So if I have an understanding, just let me know if I'm wrong. But so Prolon, what are the things that it consists of? Like, what are people consuming when they're on there?
So when you buy Prolon on the Prolon website, Prolon Life website, it's called prolonlife.com. You get a box shipped to your home. You open the box and you have day 1 and smaller boxes, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and day 5. And this device is very consumer friendly. You have your breakfast, which is a bar in the morning, the fast bar we call it, or the L bar, the longevity bar. You have soups for lunch plus crackers and olives. You have an afternoon snack. It's a Shoko-inspired snack, and then you have a dinner, soups and other snacks with it. I'm calling them soups and crackers just to make them consumer friendly, but this is again a very precise formulation that tracks, and again, $36 million in the research, and we put 18 universities together, by the way: Stanford, USC, UCLA, Mayo Clinic, University of Genoa, University of Miami, University of Leiden, University of Charité in Berlin, and we put all these 18 universities together to study the macros and the micros and make sure that it does what it does, which is mimicking fasting. It's all plant-based. There's no chemicals. On its own, it's one of the healthiest nutrition you can consume today. It's all plant-based, non-GMO, gluten-free, lactose-free, soy-free, premium ingredients, and vegan. Even we give you supplements, vitamins and minerals and omegas. They're all vegan. Even the capsule is vegan. So it's a very, very clean diet. But it has 77 plant-based ingredients that we studied specifically to not trigger what we call the nutrient sensing pathways, meaning the radars on the cells that detect food. We made sure the quantity and the combination, what you get in the morning, at lunch and dinner, studying insulin in the morning and cortisol and all the and digestion and speed of digestion and the radars on the cell. Again, took a lot of work, but it's a very precise formulation that you can eat. It for the consumer looks like very friendly bars and soups and crackers, but actually it doesn't help the cells recognize that they're consuming food, and you get the best of both worlds. You're eating and you're rejuvenating your cells and resetting your metabolism.
Yeah, I like that, because it makes, if somebody's like eating like standard American diet, for example, it's kind of like consumer friendly, as you said. Like, it's kind of, if someone is just going a 5-day water fast off the jump, doing nothing else, I mean, it's not inviting, right? So you make it a little more inviting for people, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, water fasting is brutal, right? This is how we came up with the fasting mimicking diet. We actually were a water fasting company, and then we went to do water fast for cancer. Water fasting is very beneficial for cancer patients. Cancer, whenever you have a cancer cell, it's a cell that keeps replicating with no inhibition. This is what happens. It grows fast and then goes everywhere, right? And if you fast the body, cancer cannot grow because cancer actually eats most of the food, right? Most of the nutrients. So we were studying water fasting with Mayo Clinic at USC and us, and patients couldn't do it. Just nobody can fast for 3, 4, 5 days unless you're a biohacker or you're very inspired and want to do it. But also, it's not that healthy, right? The body needs macros, the body needs vitamins, the body needs minerals. Food is a positive thing to the body. We need the nutrients. So marrying the benefits of the power of fasting with enabling the body to eat, this is how we came. We went to the NIH and say, hey, can you fund us so that we develop something that we want to call the fasting mimicking diet. We think we know how a cell detects food, and we can go around the detectors, or we can go through them without triggering them. It's going to take us a good decade, but we think we can develop the first ever oxymoron fasting mimicking diet and or nutrition. And we did it. And now we have 134 patents on it, fully
Wow.
issued US and Europe and multiple other countries. We hold the only patent in nutrition to promoting longevity, fully issued patent on regeneration and promoting longevity, patents on reversing diabetes, on treating cancer and other health conditions. These are patents. I'm not claiming Prolon treats those today, but we're studying programs to help patients with those conditions to help them better manage their health conditions in conjunction with their standard of care.
Awesome. So when you mention nutrient sizes, you're talking about like mTOR and things like that.
Yeah, mTOR, PKA, and the RAS pathways. These
What was
are
the
the
last one you
three,
mentioned?
the RAS,
Rice.
PKA, mTOR, and the RAS pathways. These are the main three, and they're intricate. Inside of the cell, they cross, obviously, but yes, this is the main three nutrient sensing pathways.
Got it. So in terms of research, like if somebody completes a Prolon fast or something like that, like what benefits do you see in these individuals? Like how is their longevity affected? How is their health affected? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, there's five benefits that we focus on that people actually experience, and I invite people to try it. We're not talking about, hey, start on this diet and let us know in 2 months. It's 5 days, and I'm going to give you results in 5 days. Number one is definitely what we talk about is the rejuvenation of the cells. This you can feel, and we're going to talk about the emotional benefit, but it's not proven. We just finished again the trial with Cedars-Sinai and University of San Antonio, Texas, showing rejuvenation of the cells. So you're going to expect on day 3 onwards cellular rejuvenation. Now you feel that. So a lot of people they start Prolon. They want to like day one is 1,000, and it's not mimicking fasting by starvation. Day one is 1,100 calories. Day two is 800. Three to five are also 800s. So it's not like we're mimicking fasting by barely giving you any food. It's actually fasting with food. And so you feel day one is like was super easy. Day two, okay, I feel like I'm in transition. I'm getting into ketosis. Day three, you feel something is happening in me. And for those who are not metabolically flexible, first time ever, sometimes they do feel like a flu-like syndrome because they're detoxing so hard. Their kidneys are actually filtering all the toxins, and we didn't talk a lot about that. That's one of the best detox ever is to detox the cells, right?
Mhm.
A lot of people love the cleanses and the detox. The best way to detox is the prolonged fasting. The inside of the cell is shedding, not just the metabolism is resetting, but the insides of the cells are shedding. And some people shed so fast that they even feel like a flu-like syndrome with that. So day 3, you feel a transition. Day 4 and day 5, you feel like I'm high because you're on ketones. The cells are rejuvenated. You feel you read, and you sleep better.
Right.
And so that's the cell rejuvenation, cycle syndrome. Number 2 is a lot of people do prolon for what I call the weight care. A lot of people love to lose weight, and the fastest way to lose weight is to have your body think it's fasting because it just goes straight to
Right.
fat and
Yeah.
cut down fat. And let's re-stress the most important point here is you protect the muscle. There's nothing that I know of today that you can do a diet to lose fat only and protect muscle. Either you lose fat of muscle, like every chronic calorie restriction, or you do the GLP-1, the Ozempics, and others, and 25 to 30% of the studies are showing 25% of the weight loss with Ozempic is a muscle loss. And they try to hide it from so many people, but that's what addicts you to them. Because the day you stop Ozempic, you regain very fast the fat because you lost a lot of muscle. Muscle is what burns carbs and creates your metabolism. Once you lose muscle, it's very difficult to recover from the Ozempics and the. So a lot of doctors today, we have in the US 15,400 plus clinics that are registered with us on Prolon. They're taking a lot of patients off Ozempic or consumers off Ozempic with Prolon to protect the muscle and keep the weight loss. So number two, as I mentioned, is weight loss, fat preferential, we call it. The body taps into fat and protects the muscle. Critical. Because at the end of Prolon, you think, oh, I'm fasting for 5 days, I'm going to be weak. Actually, you're like the best of your life. You lost fat, you rejuvenated your cells, and you protected muscle. You're like a lean, mean fighting machine. This is what happens when a company has no money, they just restructure the company. And you got to be lean and you're going to be most effective. And this is a lot of people, and we have over 1 million use of Prolon today. A lot of people like, unbelievable what I felt. I felt the best of my life on day 6, the best. And we hear this all the time. They lost a lot of weight, they lose the fat, they protect the muscle, they rejuvenate the cells. So number 3 benefit is a health related and metabolic benefit. Cholesterol, triglyceride, blood pressure, blood sugar, the typical metrics that you see when you lose fat, when you decrease the insulin resistance, and when you protect muscle and metabolism. Now, cholesterol doesn't change in 5 days. So most people who we measure cholesterol in and we see the benefits, they do it 3 or 4 times. And this is what we recommend: is you do Prolon 3, max 4 times a year. It takes a special type of science and CEO to tell you, do my products only 3 to 4 times a year, right? I'm not saying, oh, you should do it all the time. No, just you don't need to rejuvenate your cells all the time. If you watch a car race, a Formula One car race, you take it to the pit stop 3 times. You don't take it all the time to a pit stop, you lose a race. But you take it to the pit stop. It's the only thing you can do to the car to change the wheel. First, to detect. The engineers come in, they detect, they're like, oh, we got to change the oil, got to change the tire, got to fix the brake, that's fasting. This is Prolon. Prolon is a pit stop. And then the car is rejuvenated and goes back to stay longer and faster in the race. So you do it 3 to 4 times.
Very interesting.
And then so for the benefits, you're going to see the blood sugar benefit, you're going to be the blood pressure, and cholesterol, etc. So major health benefits. Number 3. Number 4 is emotional. Because all of us have tried diets and failed. The diets are set to fail because you cannot be on a diet for the rest of your life, and we feel helpless, and we feel like I cannot do it. I cannot. Prolon motivates people. A lot of trials that we do, happiness, confidence, because you know what? It's 5 days. There's a day 1, there's a day 5. Who cannot do? The compliance on Prolon is between 89 and 91%. Who cannot do something for 5 days? But it's short enough to be completed. It's long enough to rejuvenate your cells and change your relationship with food. We listen, a lot of consumers say, it changed my relationship with food. I didn't know that I can sleep on a small dinner. I didn't know that if I eat my dinner plant-based with Prolon, I sleep like an angel. I didn't know that I don't need my sugar and dessert every day. I didn't know I don't need my Diet Cokes every day. So a lot of people say it de-addicted me from big portions, from eating all the time. And I feel great. I lost the weight. I can do it. And it empowers people. So changing relationship with food is the number 4 major benefit. Number 5 is very interesting. A lot of people, when we wanted to market Prolon, a lot of pictures came to us before and after, and people used to show the weight loss and very proud that they lost the weight and they feel great. But the faces, they're different. The bio age, the face, the skin was different. And this is what attracted us the most. And skin is the biggest organ and the largest organ in the body. So we were like, if If we truthfully induce a rejuvenation in the body, the skin should rejuvenate. So we did the randomized clinical trial in Los Angeles, and the dermatologist measured before and after skin metrics, skin glowness, skin hydration, and they used also a RISA to show skin texture. And there were major benefits after doing the program. We're talking about literally food that you can eat, and I'm measuring the changes in your skin. Can you imagine that? There's no cream, there's no laser on the skin. I'm showing, we took a bet to show skin changes just induced by food, and we were very successful. So skin hydration, statistically significant improvement, skin glowness, and two things were very statistically positive is confidence and happiness. People felt confident. They felt their skin rejuvenated. They felt empowered. They lost the weight. They feel the energy. And this is what the multi-billion dollar skin industry tries to do on the faces of people. Prolon will rejuvenate the entire body skin. Prolon will do it in a healthy way. It changes the cells. It doesn't just mask by putting a cream on top of it. It's a true rejuvenation. I invite everyone here who loves to keep a beautiful skin and rejuvenated skins to do it, especially menopautic women. At menopause, a lot of women lose a little bit that energy, that vitality, that trust, that confidence. And a lot of OBGYNs prescribe Prolon at that phase to help them keep the muscle, regain the confidence, lose the weight, balance the cholesterol because they start gaining cholesterol and blood glucose, etc. It's almost what we call a pathognomonic recommendation, a perfect fit for a woman going through menopause. But every one of us with aging, we want to feel great and have a healthy skin. So those are in details the 5 major benefits of Prolon.
Absolutely, man. I like it. Like rejuvenating from the inside out. That's really important stuff right there. So I know another thing that you like talk about in addition to that is pillars of longevity. Would you want to talk about that and like what we can do from even more like than fasting, like a lifestyle perspective as well?
Yeah. So we at our company and our founder, and by the way, whomever wants to read more about what we're talking about, there's a fantastic book called The Longevity Diet by Walter Longo, the founder of our company. And again, he's the head of the Longevity Institute at USC. The longevity diet will help you what you need to eat to live a healthy, long life. And it's based on science and research and based on following centenarians. So Walter follows centenarians across the blue zones and the longevity zones, and we try to learn from them what can help us live a healthy, long life. So we believe there are 5 pillars for longevity: nutrition, and fasting falls within nutrition. That's pillar number 1. Pillar number 2 is exercise. Number 3 is stress. Number 4 is sleep. And number 5 is social capital. In social capital is a group of, relationships around you, you being happy, you feeling that you have a purpose in life, the serenity, the peace, and the relationship with friends and family. And this turns out to be probably the number 1 or 2 pillar competing with nutrition.
Yeah,
why nutrition is so important and why we focus on Prolon and nutrition, because it's the only product you put in your body every day of your life. I when I went to med school and in all my medical studies, we disrespected nutrition. We were like a pill-based people and science-based people. The nutrition is the only product that people comply on, because they don't comply on medicine, they comply on food, and they put it in their mouth and their body every day of their life. So imagine the microbiome is driven by nutrition. The epigenetics, how you read your genes, is driven by nutrition. Your blood sugar, your blood pressure. Today we call Alzheimer's diabetes type 3 because it is a metabolic health condition, right? This is how it's turning, and it's aging. It's all, and the biggest aging accelerator is food. If you keep eating high carb, high protein, and we can do a full session on the proteins because people love protein, but the increased IGF, you mentioned mTOR, it's all pro-growth, pro-aging. So you got to balance how much carbs and how much protein you eat. A very important notion, by the way, and this is part of the longevity diet. So nutrition is really probably the biggest accelerator of aging, and is very, very important concept because you put food in your body every day. But also your social capital. If you're happy the entire day, that's another input the entire day. So And we feel that whenever you're well nested, a lot of the centenarians that we study, centenarians, people living 100 and beyond, they have a smile on their face at age 106. And some of them, they don't eat healthy, some of them don't exercise, but most of them, they're happy. And when you're happy, you eat healthy, you exercise, you move, you stress less, you sleep more. So, or good quality. It doesn't have to be just a
Exactly.
quality. So, so these are the top two pillars that I focus on. I embrace them in my life. And I eat a longevity diet. I do prolong a few times a year, and I try to stay happy despite the fact that we're running companies and living in a very complicated world. Uh, and that's a bit challenging, but you gotta focus on that as well. It drives your entire lifestyle.
For sure, man. We like in America, we talk like when we think of health, we just think of usually exercise and nutrition, right? And of course, those are very important pillars, but they're not the only ones. There's like we're talking about. There's a lot of ones here, especially like we probably don't think of like being socially connected very well as a health strategy, but it very much is. Like your relationships matter a lot. We talked about that on the show here before. Something I like to say is like all relationships kind of start with us, like who we perceive ourselves to be, who are worth, like what we perceive our worth is kind of how we respond to the world in a sense, like how we let people in our lives, how we don't let people in our lives, all these types of things. Like really, like finding who you are is really important as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest disease we have today is loneliness, right? I mean, it's technology has helped us to focus on self and be isolated. Everyone is on their phone or on their game or on their music or on their, and it kind of created a little bit of a distance between humans, and it complicated the relationship between humans. It's becoming a cold relationship driven by social pressure, social standards, and legal concepts, and and we're not. People need the emotions. They need the interaction. They need to be loved. They need to love. And this is what creates peace. They need to pray or they need to meditate. We need to relax, not be always in a stressful situation. So it's very important. The science of social capital and happiness, I think, before we lose our human touch to technology, has to be revived and revested so that we go back to our true purpose in life and true meaning of life. And it happens that this will help us and help the planet we live within.
Absolutely, because like technology is great, but it can also has disconnected us in many ways, right? Like we can use it as a tool, but unfortunately, many of us have kind of become so distracted in a sense by it that we kind of it's kind of almost pulled away from who we really are. And of course, like you said, connections and yeah, man, just getting more affiliated with people, like not just like a FaceTime, but actually in person. Like we need
Yeah,
to make that as a part of our life as well.
yeah. No, I fully agree.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I've been focused on recently, like just kind of connecting with more amazing individuals like yourself as well, and just kind of really developing like deeper relationships because
Yes.
at the end of the day, I mean, like, yeah, we kind of strive for success. We kind of strive for like the like service and all that, but you want to do it along with people. And it's so I find that if you want to do anything great, it's gonna be with and through the help of other people, right? Like having a
Yes.
team like it's on the same side and really wanting to serve, it just makes it more fun as well.
It's all about the journey, right? If you want to be successful, you're going to stress every day and focus every day and eat healthy until one day you're successful. And even if, because say I want to make $1 million, when you have a million now, you want to buy two, three things, and the condo is 800,000. So you got to work more, and then the second million or third. I'm just talking if somebody has a financial goal, professional goal, you got to stress every day to become a doctor, then fellowship, then you see patients every day, and it's stressful. So it's about the journey. The goal, you're happy about it for a short period of time, but if the journey is not happy, and the journey is happy is when you talk to your mom, is when you're in great relationship with your kids, is when you have friends, is when you're upset, you can talk to somebody and share and get a hug. This is what makes, or you can meditate, or you can pray. This is what brings us back to humanity and to peace and happiness. And that's essential because when you're happy, you're going to eat better. You're going to get up out of the couch and go into the gym. You're going to sleep better. and it's all, I always say it's all about the journey, not the goal. It's a little bit like Christmas, right? It ends in one night, but the month before is what Christmas is all about. And the same here. We're going to make sure that the journey is happy and serene and peaceful, so that we make the right choices and we protect our body. I remember Warren Buffett used to say, any asset is recoverable. Anything, any loss, financial loss, you can regain from it, but your body is the only asset that once you lose it, you lose it. You cannot, get it back. With Prolon, you can rejuvenate it a little bit, but this is the asset you got to take care of, and without it, you have nothing. So important to focus on the 5 pillars of longevity. Very important to think about your biological age. How can we stay younger from the inside? It's the biggest secret to stay away from what's going to kill you. Again, 90%, to summarize what we talked about today, 90% of us will die out of 4 chronic diseases: cancer, cardiovascular, Alzheimer's, and diabetes. And they all are driven by aging. So stay young from the inside. A lot of ways to stay young from the inside is exercise, nutrition, less stress, good sleep, and social capital. There's one way we know that can take you backwards, rejuvenate your cells. That's a prolonged fast, because it puts a special pressure on the cells to rejuvenate and go younger. And the only way to do that is to have a longer fast. If you want to do it in a much easy scientific way, you can do the Prolon 5 days fasting nutrition, developed by scientists, big universities, to help people complete successfully a 5 day rejuvenation and fasting cycle.
100%. Out of curiosity, and all the research that you do you ever find uh, like interesting research in terms of purpose and longevity? Like we talked a little bit how it's connected to social relationships, but finding our purpose in life. Do you see because it's obviously equate to happiness, but do you see any research like how that helps us with that?
Yeah, we don't study purpose ourselves, but I know there are funds in NIH on that. I know there's a lot of studies on purpose. I mean, and Jay Shetty has an entire podcast called On Purpose, right? It's the number one podcast on health and wellness. And Jay Shetty is a pro runner, by the way, and precious. It purposefulness is definitely one of the pillars of happiness, and because at the end of the day, it focuses you on what matters, and what matters the most to you is what makes you happy, right? This is why purposefulness goes back to happiness, and goes back there, therefore, to serenity and inducing a healthy long life. Is you're thinking about what really matters for you. What matters for you is what makes you happy, and the more you're going towards that direction, in a serene and peaceful and focused way, the more you're getting your mind and your body both unified towards one endpoint that matters for both of them. And by doing that, you're being more happy and more serene, and therefore making better choices in life when it comes to stress, nutrition, exercise, and the other pillars.
I like that. That's really important right there. You want to talk about L Nutra at all and how the difference between that and Prolon? Is there significant differences between that?
Yeah, so Prolon is the name of the product that is developed by Alnutra. So the company that I lead, and that was created by the Longevity Institute at USC and 18 other universities, as I mentioned. The company is called Alnutra, L-Nutra. L is for longevity, dash is through nutrition. So Alnutra is longevity through nutrition. That's the purpose, that's the mission of our company. And Prolon is the first and the most important product that we have, because it represents longevity through nutrition by rejuvenating the cells and the fasting mimicking diet. And at Alnutra also, we have 40 clinical trials. I mean, so we decided to put what makes Alnutra so special versus any other nutrition company is, number one, we said food is the most important signal to human longevity, because we eat it. As I said, it's the only product we put in our body all the time. But number two, we decided to be different than any food company. We decided to put science first. And a lot of the nutrition company, they focus on the business. So they launch products that people want, and there's no science, and there's no it's pushed by influencers or by shelf space or by books or by whatever. We decided to put the same research rigorness that you put in the drug business, in the pharmaceutical and the biotech business behind nutrition. So we were okay waiting 23 years. This is how long we've been in research, 23 years, 40 clinical trials, and over 70 preclinical trials. So clinical trials is human trials. We have 40 clinical trials. There's no nutrition that has as many clinical trials as we do when it comes to the fasting nutrition. And we said, okay, let's do all of those at universities and medical centers and uncover what humans should eat. If they're healthy, to stay healthy long, that's the prevention, that's the longevity, that's Prolon for us. Now, if you're sick, what you should eat if you have diabetes? What you should eat if you have Alzheimer's? What you should eat if you have cancer? We decided to put science also to uncover nutrition formulations to support people who are sick today. And that part of our company is called L-NutraHealth, l-nutrahealth.com. And it's the medical part of our company, using food as medicine for people with different health conditions. We just launched a pilot to reverse diabetes. Everyone listening to us, if you know anyone with diabetes or you have diabetes, we're showing that every 6 months of our nutrition, you drop one medicine, you need less by one. Diabetes is a progressive disease, right? In medicine or any time you go, you get a prescription for a pill, and then you add another pill, then another pill, and then in 10, 15 years, you become insulin dependent. You don't hear people got cured from diabetes. It's a disease you live with. But today, this has changed with us. We can decrease the dependence on medication, and double-digit percentage of people will actually get off medication, meaning will get into remission. This is how powerful food is into people's life, and especially diabetes, because it's a foodborne disease.
Right.
It's the type 2 diabetes, and it's the problem that what gets you into diabetes is aging, lower metabolism with aging, less muscle, so you accumulate carbs faster into fat, loss of muscle that comes with aging, and overeating, where the extra storage goes into fat and insulin resistance. So the true causes of diabetes are aging, muscle loss, and insulin resistance with over. There's no pill today that can resolve all these root causes. It's only the fasting mimicking nutrition, like Prolon, that can rejuvenate the cells, protect the muscle, and decrease the fat and insulin resistance. And this is why we're seeing amazing results with our L-NutraHealth program to help people regress from diabetes, and in many cases be in remission from the disease.
Very interesting. Isn't it true that there's like 130 million people in America with diabetes or pre-diabetes at this point?
Yeah, there's 30 million pre-diabetic and 80 million, you're right, as close as 120, 80 million pre-diabetic. So the diabetes is 8%, and pre-diabetes is close to pre-diabetes plus diabetes close to 40% of the population. It's amazing, and 73% are overweight, and 76% have one metabolic health condition. These are striking numbers, and if what they taught us in medicine, it's genetics, then why our ancestors, they didn't have 76% right. Metabolic health, right? It's lifestyle and food induced. And part of it is eating all the time. It's quality of food is very bad, but also quantity and frequency. And this is what we focus on. And we're unlocking what we call a doctor from within the body, and rejuvenating the body from inside to go back and say, okay, I this is what I was built to do, is to eat healthy and to not eat sometimes, in order to rebalance the body. And we're rematching the body with its potential, and we're seeing major longevity benefits.
Yeah, because we're definitely living like an environmental mismatch, like in terms of everything. It's like we live in a world that's kind of having the conditions stacked against us. And that's why, like you said, we have so much chronic disease. Like it seems like every single year the numbers are getting worse. And we spend like $4 trillion a year on healthcare in America. You would think that things are getting better, right? We supposedly had like we spend the most, but we're ranked like number 38, right? We would think that if things were working, numbers would be decreasing, but they're not.
Yeah, the US system ranks number one once you get inside the hospital. But in general, on health span and what we call the Human Development Index, we actually rank in the 30s, like you said. We're doing a very bad job in preventing, decreasing, keeping people's weight. We're one of the most obese countries, one of the most stressed, and one of the most that develop metabolic and cellular diseases, more than other countries. And if you track, most of it is the focus on prevention and is the food and the lifestyle we eat. I mean, in the U.S., food portions are bigger, a lot more fried food, a lot more saturated fat, a lot more concentration of carbs, higher protein. This could be a full session on protein, by the way. I'm breaking a lot of myth today with science. There's a big myth on the protein. We can have a full hour on and show you some results. But this is what's driving, unfortunately, a sick population in the U.S.
That's awesome. I mean, I know you mentioned protein. You want to talk about this a little bit? Because I know there's a lot of
No, I'm going to keep it as a secret for next time.
because
Not
it's like,
something we can cover in the next 2 minutes. It's important. I'll give you this. The gist of it is the same way carbs are essential to life, but then high carbs leads to insulin resistance and diabetes. The same way proteins are essential to life, and the more you increase proteins, the more you're increasing IGF. What is IGF? Insulin-like growth factor. Insulin for carbs, insulin-like growth factor. It's exactly medically named insulin-like growth factor. It triggers the mTOR pathway. What is an mTOR pathway? What is a growth factor? It's a factor of aging. We don't grow backwards, we grow forwards in our aging. So it's a pro-aging factor, the same way insulin and carbs are. So it's very important that humanity understands that we need certain amount of protein. We need to control our IGF between 140 and 160. Below 140, you're losing muscle. We don't want that. After 160, you're just pushing aging without gaining more muscle. So you don't need that level. And we see that, right? The big muscular, Mr. Olympias and the big buff people at age 40 and 50 and 60, they look like they're 70 and 80 and 90. Ronnie Coleman, Arnold Schwarzenegger, they look fast. They look old fast because biologically, they've been pushing their biological age, right? Why we say don't inject growth hormone, don't inject testosterone, don't eat high proteins. Because this is what people don't say, but I'm telling you, don't eat high proteins because all those are pro-aging factors and they get you faster into an older inner age. And this is why they get cancer early. This is why you get Alzheimer's early because when you're 60, you're 70 from the inside, the opposite of what we're trying to do for longevity. And when you're 70 from the inside, you're going to touch Alzheimer's and cancer and cardiovascular. That's the summary of it.
very interesting. Yeah, because there's a lot of I would say maybe conflicting views in terms of protein. I always like to bring in multiple perspectives on there. Of course, you want to get adequate protein, but like you're saying not to overdo it. Is that right?
To be honest with you, there's no conflicting data. There's marketeers, and there's science. The
Right.
science is repeatedly saying the same thing. There's no conflicting science on protein. And you look at meta-analysis, which looks at groups of articles all together. The direction is the same. Is you want to make sure between age 40 and 60, this is the pre-disease stage, that you're not eating high animal protein to not spike IGF. You don't need to eat very high protein diets because you're boosting your age and pre-disease condition. Now, when you go after 65, 70, you don't absorb protein well, so you need higher protein. Your body is not developing cancer at age 70 and 80. The cells don't replicate fast as an mTOR response. So you can add more proteins at that age. But the consensus of the science is very clear. Plant-based, moderate protein between age 40 and 65. You can go more animal, a little bit more animal-based or higher rate after age 65. The science is really clear on that. I've never seen a carnivore diet through science showing longevity. It's just you're going to keep pushing IGF with the carnivore diet and you're going to age much faster. Now, why they survive these diets? Because in the short term, you look good when you boost IGF and growth hormone. It's you look buff, you look, people want to look good on the shorter term. So the protein industry survives off that. But you have yet to see one centenarian who was an Olympic bodybuilder. Hasn't happened.
That makes sense.
So, yeah.
Last topic I'd like to cover. You already mentioned it before, but a little bit of research in terms of the exercise part, because I know exercise is very important in terms of longevity, especially we talk about muscle. Like muscle is very important to have on like as you're older, and
Yes.
all these types of things. Maybe we want to talk about that a little bit.
No, for sure. And two types of exercise, right? The you wanna make sure you get 2.5 to 5 hours of exercise per week. Um, Very important, not just for, it goes back to all the pillars of longevity. It's important for muscle, but it's serotonin and happiness as well. It's also burning the carbs and making sure the metabolic risk factors are low and cholesterol, etc. So extremely beneficial for longevity, but also the intermittent intensive exercise. This is like Prolon almost, right? So you see a lot of the folks doing stressful, fast exercise, and this is to push the what happens to the heart when you ask the heart to pump faster and bigger loads because you're doing intensive exercise. It secretes local pro-angiogenic hormones, so it wants to develop more arteries now, right? And to be able, so this is the rejuvenation of the heart, right? So the stress that you impose on the cardiovascular system helps the cardiovascular system rejuvenate and find new ways to bring the red blood vessels. Prolonged fasting is putting the same stress on the entire body. This is why you see a total body rejuvenation, but that's the similarity of why I told you do fasting with prolonged, not bone broth or juices, because then it's just a low calorie. It's not a true rejuvenative stress on the body.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. This has been an awesome interview. I really like the topics you talked about. Very knowledgeable about things you talk about. Really enjoyed it, and you summarized it already pretty good. But to do just a little bit more, we talked about the Prolon in terms of the benefits of fasting. We talked about your pillars of longevity, especially the social side, which we need to focus on a little bit more, especially in today's culture. Just kind of really like not neglecting that. Like nourishing our relationships is very important, and L-Nutra and how you're supporting people with chronic disease and all that, exercise, and just making sure that once we get these habits into place, it's a lot easier to continue. You don't have to do this all at once. Like it's not about being perfect, but it's about progress. Like just getting better every single day, just adding these things in, and eventually, you're gonna start feeling better and just want to help other people in terms of that. And if you don't become a health professional, just helping people around you because they see you living your life and feeling good, and they want some of that as well.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you, Anthony. We did start the podcast saying hopefully we're going to change somebody's life. Probably we laid down a lot of great informations about longevity. So hopefully this has touched somebody and invited them to take actions today.
I agree, man. So if people want to get their hands on these types of things, like where can we get connected with you? How can we get connected with your companies? Tell us more about that.
If you want to read more or buy Prolon, you go to prolonlife.com. Prolon, Prolon. There's no G at the end. It's just Prolon in life.com. There's a section there called Science. We have all the clinical articles for those interested to read and see the evidence behind Prolon. Otherwise, then you can buy the product there. I do recommend you subscribe for three Prolons per year. We didn't mention this, but we just published an article in Nature, the #1 science journal of the world, showing that if you do 3 Prolons, your bio-age score decreases by 2.5 biological years.
Really?
It's very important. So do the 3 cycles. We have a lot of other products there that are more to decelerate aging, especially the longevity protein. I recommend people do the fast part or the longevity protein. But anyhow, you can find all these on prolonlife.com. If you want to follow me personally, I'm very active on LinkedIn, Dr. Joseph Antoun, and all my social handles are the same, Dr. Joseph Antoun on Instagram and or Facebook and or the other platforms.
Sounds awesome. I'm sure people are wanting to get connected with you. So again, man, it's been awesome. I appreciate you coming on and sharing all your information with us.
Thank you very much.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.